Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Strange, Dark, and Related podcast. I am your host, Elfie, and with me today are the Relateds. As always, we're going to start off our episode with a question of the day, which is, if you could only eat one of these for the rest of your life, which would you choose? Taco, burrito, or churro? Now, I'm Elfie, and I chose burrito. And the reason for that is because I feel like with a burrito, it's always really big. So I usually will eat half a burrito for lunch, and then I'll eat the other half for dinner. And so I would save a lot of money by eating burritos. Number two, basically anything can go in a burrito. So there's a big variety, right? There's breakfast burritos, there's Mexican burritos. You can make anything into a burrito. And so you have a lot more variety for your food if you choose burrito. And burritos can be burrito bowls. They can be wrapped up burritos. I don't know. I feel like I could not get bored with a burrito. And I feel like I would get bored with a taco or a churro.
Those are all excellent reasons. Funny enough, my reasons are very similar, but I'm going for taco.
What's your name?
Oh yeah, I'm Willow. So the reason I'm going for tacos is because a burrito is too much food, so I never finish it. And when I go back to it, it doesn't taste as good as when it was first made. So to me, I would prefer tacos. And I always deconstruct my burritos too and eat them fajita style, which is basically very similar to tacos. So I also dump out all my taco fillings and normally just eat it fajita style. I know, blasphemy. And I also make everything the fillings is very interchangeable. A lot of my breakfast is breakfast tacos. Yeah, I get bored with my food. So there's a lot of I make tacos out of everything. So tacos is for me.
Hi, I'm Ian, and I also would choose tacos. Every single time that we go to a Mexican restaurant and eat Mexican food in general, I typically go for tacos. So I don't think that I would ever get bored of them. And there's so many different types of meat that you can eat with it and different types of styles. So I would also choose the taco.
And crunchy tacos. I forgot about them.
And taco salads and breakfast tacos and tostada tacos. There's just a lot that you could do with tacos. It doesn't always have to be the flour tortillas or corn tortillas, or there's a lot of variety.
And cut up your tortillas and make them into chips.
See, I did think about tacos, but the thing is if you can only eat tacos, you're kind of limited to just the tacos that a place sells, right? So let's say that you're on vacation someplace and they're because I've been to a few places where food trucks and stuff, right? Or you're at a sporting event, they have tacos and it's literally just a tortilla, the meat, and salsa. And that's all you get for a taco. But if you get a burrito, you get a lot more. So yeah, that's why I chose burrito, because you always have variety with burritos. And I felt with tacos, it's too limited. And then with churros, it's just too sweet.
Yeah, I agree with
I can't do that. Yeah.
Well, and then with tacos, so I can't do acidic plants anymore. So tomatoes, citrus, all that stuff. So I just asked them to add other stuff. I was like, I can't do salsa or hot sauce, so can you add whatever? And they're usually, they're more. Usually,
if they have it, they can add it. But
if they have it for a burrito, you have it for a taco. Yeah.
True. Maybe.
So.
All right. Moving on. Today's episode topic is being a woman in 2022. So I think this will be a fun one since the three of us here today are women. Alrighty. So let's start off with what has your guys' experience been so far this year being a woman?
This year?
Yeah.
This first month?
In this first month of the year?
I I think it's been good so far. I don't have any complaints so far for this year. I think last year there was a lot of interesting things that happened that I think had a lot that correlated a lot with like being a woman, because it was yeah, we can get into that later, but I think a lot of the things that happened last year have led me to where I am now today in my job and like where I live and all of those different things. And I'm much happier now, even though there was a lot of struggles last year.
Anne, what about you?
I think it's been interesting, to say the least, just because I've actually had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people on women's issues in general for whatever reason this past month. And so it's been interesting to see the different opinions and dynamics. Just because with one of my coworkers, we got into a conversation about like fertility and how that relates to feeling like a woman, because she is very, very fertile, whereas I am not. And so it was an interesting dynamic to be able to talk about that, just because I feel like even though we are, definitely moved forward from, let's say, the turn of the century, the 1900s, where like your main purpose was to make babies and have a house and a home, and that's pretty much it. Like, we've definitely moved way farther than that. That's still an option for people who want it, but it's an option. It's not the only thing that you can do. And it was interesting to talk about how I feel about that quote unquote role, because my coworker is very young and she is pregnant with her second child and she's 21. So she asked the question of, am I the only one who has kids here?
Was she?
And I was like, she's not, but she is the youngest one with kids, for sure. Everybody else who has kids are in their like 40s or 50s. Everybody else in their 20s and 30s don't have kids. And she was like, that's so weird. Like, I would feel so weird as a woman not having kids. And I was like, well, there's a very large likelihood that I am never going to have kids naturally in that way. Like, I can definitely have kids by like being a foster parent or adopting, or there's other avenues for me, right? But I don't feel like it's really weird. I feel like infertility is definitely something that happens. And it's something that's very common, and that it's in some ways looked down upon. Like, oh, poor her, she's infertile, like she can't actually have babies. Like, there is a little bit of a stigma to that. And so it was a really interesting conversation, and I think that she learned a lot from it.
So sorry, I might have not caught this. And is she native to where we are, or is she from another country?
Oh no, she's native to California.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
That's interesting. Do you think that she feels like that need comes from like the way that she was raised or from her culture?
I think that it does. She's from a very traditional Mexican family, so there's definitely a lot of values surrounding that. That's very, very strong still within that community, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. It's just a reality of that community.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I don't know. I think that these days there's a very big, there's like, I don't know. How do I explain this? I think like as a woman, right? It's like, there's been a lot of push for women to be able to not have to live in traditional roles, right?
Mhm.
But I think that some women like that traditional role, and it's kind of like, how does a woman live the life that she wants if that means living that traditional role without holding back that progress?
And so my opinion is progress is being able to live whatever life you want, and however that appears, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you want to be a mom, awesome. If you want to have kids and you want to be a mom and be a stay-at-home mom, awesome. If you want to be a mom and be the breadwinner and your partner stays home, awesome. You want to be super career focused and not have children, cool. You want to travel and not have roots, awesome. You want, like, however that looks for you in whatever capacity it is, you go on with your bad self, right? Like, that is my opinion on how progress would look, is that we are able to, and that's for everyone, not just women, right? That would be for everyone to be able to live their authentic life in the manner that they want to and be happiest in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I have seen a very big push to kind of get rid of those traditional roles in media and to kind of try to portray a certain, right, like a different view of women. And although I think, it is good to show that women can be a different role, I also think that it is important to have those traditional roles still within media and through pop culture, simply because some women really do like that traditional role. Like, they want to be a stay-at-home mom, right? They like cooking. They like, I don't know if they like cleaning. I like cleaning because, I don't know, I think it reduces stress and whatever. But I think that it is important to still have those roles in pop culture, because women still need someone to look up to and something to, like, I guess, like that role model, right? It's like, oh yeah, like that's what I strive to be. And it's okay if it's traditional, and it's okay if it's not.
So, yes, I agree. I also think that we need to change the idea of what a traditional role is, because it's not the mom that does everything, right? And maybe this works for some households and maybe it doesn't. But I also think that we need to also look at having, like, the husband also do stuff. And it's not like babysitting your kids, it's also parenting, right? Different things like that. And so I think there is, yes, 100% bringing that into the media, but let's change it a little bit so that way it's more, it's not so just like relying on mom for everything and having clueless dad.
So that sounds more like we need to change the role of men, not women.
Yeah, and I think in some ways that we do, right? Because it's surprising to see in some relationships that I'm seeing how clueless some of these husbands are when it comes to, like, things about the kids, right? Like, not knowing where certain things are. And yes, it absolutely is due to a multitude of things. It has to do with the relationship between the marriage, right? And how that kind of came to be. But, like, hearing from so many different friends of just, like, these different issues, and this is kind of how things are portrayed, and, like, the super mom aspect, and how they feel like they need to take everything on. And a lot of these women also were, like, strong, independent before having children, and now all of a sudden having children, it changed their whole dynamic. And even though they might have said, this is not the type of person I'm going to be, they just kind of fell into it. And some of them are saying, like, I don't know how this happened. Like, I don't know how, like, it just became this, right? Which I think is also interesting. I've also heard like the mommy pressure. Also, I don't have children, so this is all anecdotal, right? Like, this is just from what I've heard from friends. Like the mommy pressure of like being the career woman and being super mom and being like the perfect wife and the perfect mom and the perfect employee and trying to do all of it all at the same time, and how it's exhausting, and having like decision fatigue where everyone comes to them for the decision. Like, that's also exhausting, right? So all of those things combined. Yeah. So I think, to go back to your original point, yes, I think it is important to show traditional roles. I think it's also important to show different types of roles, right? Different types. And in a show, you can have like show multiple types of dynamics. It doesn't just have to be one. And I think there's, like you said, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a mom, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a caregiver and do that sort of role. I think it's great, right?
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you said that. Like, from your perspective, a lot of men aren't very involved in raising the kids.
Oh no. Right. So this is just what I've heard from different friends.
Right. But that's from your perspective.
Yeah.
From my perspective, like from what I've been hearing and seeing, I actually see a lot of men very involved in their kids' lives, and like even at the gym, like sometimes I'll see like some of the guys bring their kids, and their kids are sitting there like watching them work out and stuff, and they're just like, oh well, their mom, she had other stuff to do, so I'm taking care of the kids today, and like they just make it work. And I think that's really nice to see.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
And it's like, sharing that responsibility and just saying like, mom needs time off too, or, she has stuff going on too. So I'm, I want to get my workout in, but I'm going to find a way to make it work. Or, I want to hang out with like my friends, but I have to bring my kid. So guys, let's do like, it's like, let's do something kid friendly because I'm bringing the kid. So,
and I think that's wonderful. And I think that that's how it should be, right? Like that, it should be a partnership instead of like having all of it fall on one person, regardless of the gender, because it's not fair for it to fall all on one person, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not sustainable. It's not.
Yeah. But I also think it's fun, like seeing when guys bring a kid around their friends that don't have kids, because then they're like, oh, what do I do with this thing?
Yeah, and seeing guys hold babies for the first time is the funniest thing.
But yeah. I think it's like really cool because they're just like, oh my God, is this what feeling like being a grown-up feels like? It's like, no, this is what being a parent feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's wonderful. And seeing that dynamic, and I love seeing like dads with their babies and with their kids and seeing them interact. I think it's wonderful.
It reminds me of something that my niece said when she was probably like 4 or 5. And she said that a woman becomes a grown-up when she has a baby, and a man becomes a grown-up when he gets married. And that was this distinction between like what it means to be grown up. And I find it funny. Like, I just found it funny that Elfie had said, like, is this what a grown up feels like when like they're interacting with the kids and stuff like that? Because I feel like everybody has a different definition of what it means to like be grown up. Like, for example, my boyfriend didn't feel like really like a grown up until he started doing his own laundry. And like, that was like the marker for him of, man, I'm like really adulting. I'm doing my own laundry. And I find it interesting that in some families that have really established traditional roles, that the men are just so unaware of what it actually means to take care of a household, like all of the work that actually goes into it, all of the different chores, all the different things that the woman in the traditional role actually takes on. And they're just completely unaware. And something that's been really nice is that I've actually talked to different friends that are in relationships where the man does come from a family and from a very traditional role, like household that they were raised in, and how I've seen a lot of them be like, I really want to learn all these things. And it's something that I did want to learn growing up, but I was always told that that was just not my role. And so I always just thought that it just wasn't something that I was supposed to do, because every single time I expressed interest in it, it was something that I was steered away from. And so I see sort of both sides of it, where if it's something that they were raised to and have that sort of expectation, that they are going to sort of carry that on into their relationships. Right. Mm-hmm. And then it's interesting to see the dynamic, just because my boyfriend, for example, comes from a very, very traditionally raised household. And one time, like very early on in the relationship, we were doing something and he's like, oh, that's the woman's role. And I was like, is it? Or is that a partner role and a defined partner role? And he's like, well, what kind of wife are you going to be? And I was like, the equal partner kind. And he's like, oh yeah, we have those type of relationships. And I was like, yeah, we do. I was like, would you want me to do like all these things for you and control your life in that way? And he's like, no, I really wouldn't. I would really like to like do that. And I was like, okay. He's like, and I can do that. And I was like, yeah, you can do that. And he's like, oh, like I can do that. And I was like, yeah, you can. And it was a really interesting conversation, because he started realizing that the expectations of what his relationship should not be defined by how he was raised and the roles that he was said that he was supposed to have, and that we as a couple can choose how our relationship actually is and the roles that each one of us takes on. And it doesn't need to be traditional roles. And that's still fine as long as our relationship works and we're in agreement with how that is set up. And it was a really interesting conversation. And it's one that I know that my friends who have partners that were raised in traditional roles, conversations that they also have, it was something, a very commonality type of thing, where it was actually a conversation about different things that, like roles that we would take on as part of the relationship.
Yeah. It is interesting to hear the conversations that people that have a partner that has been in a more traditional raised setting. Like I have one friend and she's a very progressive woman, and her significant other, he was raised in a very traditional culture. And whenever they go over to his parents' house, all the women are in the kitchen and all of the men are in the living room, hanging out, talking. And then the women are cooking and cleaning and getting everything ready for whatever they're doing. And she wanted to make sure that in their relationship that things are equal. And so when they go over to his parents' house, she doesn't go into the kitchen unless he goes into the kitchen. So unless he's helping out his mom and he's helping out his aunts, she doesn't go into the kitchen. She will go with him and help. And me coming from a Hispanic type family where I was always taught, you go, like, you help, like you always, like you're a guest and you help and you go into the kitchen and you also pitch in. And I asked her, I was like, does that kill you inside seeing these women essentially like serve you and like work around you? And she said, yes, which is crazy to like feel this feeling and feel like this need, like I should go help. I should also go do these things. But then she just sits on the couch. until he does it.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And the thing is like, I do have that same feeling. But it's not because I'm like, oh, as a woman, I should be there. It's more like I can help. So why aren't I?
Yeah, exactly.
And if like the guys are working on something, I still feel that same need. Like, hey, they're working on something for me. Like I should be helping. Like it's kind of a dick move not to help.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And so I asked her and she said, it's his family. So if he wants to help, he needs to show that we are going to be helping. So I'm taking his lead on when we help and when we don't, which I thought was a very interesting stance. And she said it's more important for her to show him that there's like, because there's also been like you said, Anne, there's been lots of conversations between them about the household chores and all of that stuff. But like being with his family, I thought was a very interesting dynamic, and the stance that she took, and how like it does kill her inside to see these women like working and doing stuff, and she just sits on the couch and like drinks with the guys essentially.
So I actually have a very similar experience whenever I go spend time with my boyfriend's family. Well, extended but not extended family. So he has half siblings. And so the half siblings all get together, and that is a much bigger gathering. And that is when you really see the separation of the women in the kitchen and the men doing other things. And for us, it's just easier for me to go and like help in the kitchen and like spend time with the women. And for me, it's been more beneficial for me to be able to build those relationships with those women by doing that. And for me, that's more beneficial. But for our relationship, I've drawn the line of I will not serve. So like, not saying that it's anything wrong, but these women just serve the men consistently. So it's always, there's an empty beer bottle in their hand, they're going to replace the beer. Or there's an empty glass in their hand, they're going to replace whatever was in the glass. They're always going to make sure that their plate is full, things along those lines. And for me, I'm like, I will go into the kitchen and I will help prepare and spend and bond with the women in the family. But I will not act as your servant in that way. If you want something, then you're the one who needs to go and serve yourself. You're the one who needs to go and like grab a drink and things along those lines. I will not serve you. That's where I draw the line. And so I find it interesting, sort of the way that everybody decides to sort of handle it. And I think that every couple should have that discussion and decide where they're going to draw the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny because I actually end up serving him at like our family events, which is interesting that I do that. And to be honest, I do it without even thinking about it. But it's like a conscious decision that I don't do when we're with his family, just because it's sort of expected of me. And so for me, it's more of like, I like to do it when it's my choice and I feel like it's not something that's expected of me. And then I'm just doing it as like a nice gesture for somebody else. Because I'll do it for like you guys too, you know?
What? You never serve me, but I will definitely be making sure that you serve me next time we hang out.
I expect
well, like not like
I'm like,
oh
Anne,
gosh,
excuse me. My glass.
But if I have the like dish, then like I will like serve out dish, like, and if like I have the bottle of like Martinelli's or juice or something, then like I'll pour the glass.
That way, though, Anne. Oh, are you standing? Can you please go get us a cup of water?
You guys are terrible. But like for me, that's one of the ways that like I show that I care about that person.
Yeah.
But when like I'm in the setting where it's like that very traditional role and it's expected of me, and for me, it's like just an expectation versus me taking the initiative to be able to make that like a gesture of love, then that's kind of where I draw the line.
And I actually draw a very similar line too. I think there's a difference between serving someone and making someone a plate, right? So like if I'm in the kitchen and we're going to watch a movie I'll say like, hey, do you guys want anything before, like, you know, like, do you want like, or like I can bring in food, you know, so like I offer, or if I get up at work, I'm like, I'm going to go and grab some water. Do you guys want anything? Like, to my desk mates. I don't feel like that's serving. I feel like that's a difference between like taking care of the people that around you, you know, and showing that sort of attention versus making sure that my husband's beer is never empty. That's a different kind of serving, right?
Yeah.
And just like when I know with you guys, like if you're in the kitchen and you're like, hey, I'm gonna go grab this. Do you want more popcorn? Whatever. It's just very much like a dynamic that I think it's good, right? And it shows that you care and you're thinking of the other person.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that is interesting. And that you feel like, you know, you have to act differently around your boyfriend's family to kind of show like, hey, like if I'm going to serve him, it's because I love him, not because it's my duty to do so. But I'm curious about what it means to be a woman from a single perspective. Because I know that there's been a lot of like changes on like dating apps. That's what they're called. I was like, what are those things called again? Dating apps. There's been a lot of changes on dating apps, right? Where now there's a really big push for women to kind of like make the first move. And I think the reason for that is because women are so used to getting hit on that it's just like men like reach out. And then women are like, And then like nothing ever happens, right? Because they're just like they just get to choose from like this line of men or whatever, right? It's like, oh, here's my pool. Which do I want? So I think it's kind of cool that it is like pushing women to kind of step out of that comfort zone and make the first move and be like, oh man, this is like a lot harder when I have to reach out and I have to like make the first move and say something.
Yeah. So as a single woman, I am on the dating apps and I go on and off them because there's a lot of like garbage out there. There's also some really great guys out there too, some like quality guys. But sometimes it just does get overwhelming dealing with all of the like very toxic traits that sometimes get that come up through dating apps.
Do you feel like those toxic traits come out because men feel like they have to take a certain role and they have to present themselves in a certain way to seem like attractive or desirable?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I think with some guys, they just don't know how to communicate. Like literally just don't know how to communicate. Right. And some of them, so the ones that I actually have appreciated is the ones that are very open and honest. And those are the ones that normally go a lot further than ones that are trying to tell you what they think you want to hear. So the ones that are just open and honest, like, what are you looking for? And then the guys like that, if I'm looking, and I'll just tell them like, I'm looking for like to see where this goes, but ultimately like I want a relationship. And then they're like, cool, I'm just here for XYZ, right? Or if they are looking for a relationship, or they're just like, I'm just in town and I just want to see some stuff. Do you want to like go hang out? Cool, let's go see stuff, right? And like with no expectation. So like being upfront about what they want has gone a lot further, I think, with those guys than guys that try to tell you what they want. Like there was one guy who was like, yes, I want kids. 100%. I would love to be a dad. And I was like, I don't want kids. I was like, maybe I'll foster and adopt in the future, but birthing my own child is not something I want. And then he was like, I actually don't want kids too. What? You literally just told me you want children and you want to be a dad. And now that I said I don't want children, then you're like, I agree. I don't want kids. So there's a lot of that as well, where they're just saying what you want to hear. And I think that's one of the things that's really frustrating about like just dating in general, is because like, let me make my own decision about the type of person that I want to date. Right. And if you don't know if you want kids, and if you don't know if this is what you want, and that's fine, but just say, I don't know. Like, I'm unsure still if I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then let the other person make that decision. Because I think that for me, that has been some of the difficulty in navigating like dating, because there's so much of just like lies and just like bullshitting.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, so I think it's interesting because Willow, you're single and you're in a relationship, but not married. And I am married. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be interesting seeing it from like the different perspectives. So when my husband and I first started dating, I was like super honest. I think like we were like a month in dating and I was just like, look, I know that like we're not exclusive right now, but I just need to know, like, is this going somewhere? Because if it's not, I don't want to waste my time. So just tell me. If this isn't going anywhere, cool, we can just end it now. But if you do see this going somewhere, then cool. Then like, we can continue. And he was just like, yeah, he's like, I want to see where this goes. And, I think we're moving forward, but yeah, let's just see where it goes. But a lot of guys, like when I would ask them that, they're just like, whoa, you're moving like way too fast. I'm like, I'm moving too fast by asking you if I'm wasting my time. Like, then this isn't the right thing. So I think just being like, I was just always like really blunt and very honest, and it scared off a lot of guys. And I was like, good. I want you to be scared off, because if you're scared off, you're definitely not the right guy for me. And it was like the quickest way to get rid of all these like incompatible guys.
Yeah.
Not that there was anything wrong with them. It was just, they just weren't compatible for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there is, and that's kind of like what I'm looking for, right? Like dating, having fun, doing my thing. But I do want someone that's compatible with me. Like, I have my life built. I'm very happy with the people around me. And if I'm going to bring someone else in, I think it's important that I'm not just looking for a filler. Like, I want to like him, and I want to get along with him, and I want to be able to laugh and like do all these things, right? And when it doesn't work out, it does, like you said, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with him. It just means that you are not for me, or I'm not for, and also the other way around, like I might just be like, yeah, and just be like, I really like him. We got along really well. And then he's like, I don't see this going somewhere. Cool. That's totally fine. Right? Like, just because I like you doesn't mean you have to like me back. And just because you like me doesn't mean I have to like you back. And that's totally fine. So I'm just working. I have a tendency to go towards guys that are more toxic. So this year I'm really trying to like go towards guys that are healthy. And so I'm just trying to like meet new people this year. I mean, I feel like 2020, like that was kind of a goal that I had before, but 2020 100% shut that down.
120 was like, oh, that's your goal? Guess what? I'm going to kill it.
It's kind of hard to meet people when all you do is walk around your block, because like, yeah.
And anytime you come across a person, they're just like shooting all the way across the street. They're like, please don't come near me. You're just like, hello.
Exactly. You're like, I just want to make a friend. Yeah. So I think now, so I've been trying to like meet new people, and like, because I feel like if I get quality guys around me, then that will like get me used to more of those attributes. Right. Because I feel like for so long I had very toxic guys that I just like continued to go for and see and just be attracted to. Yeah. So it's been a journey, but it's fun, right? It's fun, like getting new people, like getting to know new people and you guys and understanding what I want and what I don't want.
Yeah. Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
And also, going back to your original point of like initiating first.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be hard to initiate first. Like if you match, even just saying like, hey, how's it going? Or make a comment about something on their profile. So easy. And you like, and it just gets the conversation flowing in the direction that you want it to go in.
I think some people struggle with that because I think not everyone is used to being the one approaching others. Like,
oh no, I wasn't either until
there's like, yeah, like I don't approach other people mainly because like, I don't know, I don't really care to. I'm just like, whatever. Like if we're meant to be friends, we'll be friends. If we're not, then whatever. No big loss. Didn't know you anyways. So, and I'm totally cool with like doing things solo. So I'm not the type of person to approach someone. But if I want to get to know you, like I'm not afraid to do that, but not everyone's like that. And I've heard that from like a few like friends that are still single and they're just like, it's really hard. Like, I don't know what to say. Like I get so awkward. It's those insecurities. And so, yeah, I do think that, it's not that easy for everyone. And that's why like, I like doing hard things that like kind of push me outside of my comfort zone. Cause I'm like, well, if I did this other thing that was like really hard and I was like, I ended up being good at it. What else can I do that I think is really hard that I can be good at?
I think with my experience, so I've been out of the like looking for somebody to date world for 9 years now. So it's definitely changed a lot since I was dating. But something
you
that
also have changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like
definitely. I've definitely changed a lot as a person.
You've grown a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, which to be honest, it's been really nice. The fact that we've been in a relationship for so long and sort of the age range that we got into a relationship with, because we grew together and like we changed together. And so like that definitely is something that I'm super grateful and appreciate. But for me, it reminds me about high school, because I in general am a very outgoing, assertive, sometimes aggressive person. Like I'm not somebody who like pulls my punches. I'm not somebody who's
you don't shy
like
away.
Always walk. Yeah, I don't shy away. And for me, like I've always been the person like approaches people and things along those lines. Like that's just the personality that I've always had. And for me, in high school, like it was like I really didn't date anybody really at all. And even like through college, I didn't. And it was interesting when I went to my 10-year reunion for high school. And it was interesting to interact with people. And they're like, man, I had like such a crush on you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, then why didn't you ever make a move? Like I was single for like all of high school, like all of college for the most part. Like I had maybe like relationships here and there, but like, yeah. And they're like, I was just really intimidated by like your personality. I just didn't think that you were going to like me. So I didn't even try. And for me, that was really like hard to hear, because I was like, there was a time in high school that I liked you too. Like we legitimately could have had a relationship and my life potentially could have been really different. Like I'm really happy with my life and the way that it turned out. And I'm not saying that like I'm like I missed out on anything, but like in a certain way, like I do feel like there were like a ton of missed alternate timelines in my life, because apparently I'm really intimidating. And Like,
Do you have RBF? For those of you who don't
is
know
that?
what that means, it's resting bitch face.
Oh, yes. Yes,
I
I
do.
do.
I
Do
have
you-
major
I do.
RBF, and I think that's why I don't have a lot of like female friends. Because, well, I spend a lot of my time at the gym, and girls see me and like I'm like very serious, and some girls will like look at me and they kind of like smile, and like I'll smile, but now like that we have to wear a mask, so you can't really tell. So I just look not nice. It just looks like I'm just like pissed off all the time. um, yeah, but I don't know. Guys aren't afraid to approach me, but it's like girls they're just like,
That's
Well,
so
it's
funny.
interesting because, like, I still got the feedback that I'm intimidating, which I
Uh-huh.
feel like nowadays I'm not as intimidating as I was when I was younger. Like, I feel like I've become more approachable, but apparently not, because there were some people in other departments that really didn't know who I was, and until they actually interacted with me in the capacity of my job, they didn't actually know what position I had, and they're like, "Oh, this is the department that you work for? Like, this is what you do?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is what I do." And they're like, "I legitimately thought that you were like an operations manager or like some really high like IT person. Like, you just have this like air of like authority and do not mess with me in general." And I was like, didn't realize that's the vibe I was putting off. I kind of felt like I'm like nice and friendly most of the time, especially at work. Like, I feel like I make a conscious effort to do that, but
But it's also not
I'm
a
still
bad thing,
like,
I think. Because I've gotten the same feedback too. I don't think it's a bad thing. So I am a
well,
man.
I think it is a bad thing if people think the only reason why they think that you're in a leadership role is because you have RBF, because you look like a bitch. Like,
Oh yeah, that is bad.
you know, like I'm just like, well, why is it that like I have to look mean and don't fuck with me in order for me to be in a leadership role? It's like, I don't know. I've met some really nice women that are in leadership roles, right? And it's like,
Yeah. And I don't think it has to do with like nice. Well, it can do with nice and not nice. So I've also gotten the same feedback that I I can be intimidating at work. But it also might be just the way that I approach things at work, right? So someone that would be like equivalent to me in terms of different department, but just like equivalent to me. He said that someone had to go ask me something, and then they're like, "No, I'm scared to ask her. What if she says no?" And then they're like, "Go ask her. Like she's fine. Like go ask her." And I think he said the reason why is because they can't read me. And he said, I think that's why that person was intimidated to approach you and ask you for like if your team could do something. And I was like, that's so funny. And so, yeah, and it could just be like they can't read you, or the other thing he said it could be was because I'm very like direct, and it's like, this is what my team is doing, this is what we're working on. If you like, happy to help and take this on. However, these are the other things that will have to be pushed back if we do take this on. So it's very like direct. These are the timelines that we're working with. These are the things that we're working on. This is the impact that it's going to have. And I think that sometimes people just take on and say, and don't say like, this is all of the other stuff that is going to have to change by doing this. So he said that that could also be the reason why that person was intimidated to ask for something for my team, because it does show the impact that is going to have on all the other teams that my team. So we do like projects that my team works on and works with. So it could be because of your RBF. It could also just be the way that you hold yourself and that you know your stuff, and that there's nothing wrong with that, right? It could be that you're confident and you exude that instead of like shrinking away. Because I've also noticed that people are afraid of like executives and C-level and directors and all of that stuff. And for me, like, I've worked with those types of people. To me, they're just people. I have no problem approaching them. I have no problem talking to them. And that also kind of exudes a confidence that can be intimidating.
No, I completely agree. It's funny. So I actually have a really good boss right now, and he's the type of person that I can approach with different things. And I'm the type of person that if something, I'm a very rules and procedures person. I like rules and procedures. It makes things very clear. And I'm the type of person that follows rules and procedures. But if rules and procedures do not work and there's continuously exceptions to that, then I feel like we should change the rules and procedures so that it's no longer an exception. So I'm also a very big advocate of if something doesn't work, change it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to keep on like putting band-aids on a system that doesn't work because it's just easier in the short term versus making the change and making it easier in the long run. So pushing for change and doing all of that, my boss does say, like, I'm Julieing the whole entire situation. Like, if I know something's not working, I'm like, okay, we're going to Julie it. Like, we're going to change it. We're going to find a way to fix it. We're going to like make sure that it works because I am not going to continue to make these exceptions. And something that we do say at work is CBJ, clarify before we Julie. Because I am the type of person that, for example, the receptionists were having a really difficult time following all the rules and procedures, which I completely understand. With COVID, there's a lot of different changes to a lot of different procedures and things along those lines. It's hard to keep up with everything, but mistakes kept on happening. And I was like, if mistakes happen, then it needs to be addressed. We can't just continue to allow these mistakes to happen. I work in security, so I'm like, that's unacceptable. We're in security. Like, if anybody should be following rules and procedures, it's us. Like, bottom line. And if we're unable to do that, then we need to find a way to fix it. So I created this whole entire like cheat sheet guide with pictures and explanations of everything. And I laminate it and I bound it. And I was like, this is what we're doing. And if this doesn't work, then this is my next step plan on to be able to get all these things addressed, like a training regimen that's going to happen and quizzes that are going to happen on a regular basis to be able to make sure that everybody's up to date on all the policies and procedures and things along those lines. And so to like build out all these programs, he like affectionately calls it Julieing. Like, we're going to Julie the whole entire system, which always ends up being really good overall for the team.
That's good.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I worked with a lot of teams that dealt with COVID as well at my company. And I actually took a different approach when people weren't following procedures. And I tend to ask people like, why? Why did you do that? Mm-hmm. And it's not to be like, haha, you're dumb. It was more to be like, help me understand your line of thinking. Because if I can understand like how you're getting to like the conclusion that this was the right choice. And I'm like, okay, got it. I can see like where you were going with that. And like, that was a good line of thinking. But here's the resource for you for next time so that you can get it right next time. And like, this is how we're doing it. And this is why we're doing it. And I think that's been the most effective thing for my team is just explaining the why. Because I know like before my team used to do like a lot of like quizzes and trainings and this and that. And people are like, okay. But the mistakes kept happening. And it was like, and, people would be like, we need more training. And it was like, maybe we don't need training. Maybe we're approaching this from the wrong direction. And I had read a book about negotiation and I was like, okay, I need to speak the same language as like these people. And I'm in more of a leadership role within my team. And I'm like, it's been so long since, well, I mean, it's been like a few years. It's been a few years since I've been in that role, and so much has changed because of COVID, and they're dealing, like we're dealing with so many different like variables, and so much is changing that I don't know what it's like to be in that role anymore. And so I like giving something I hated when I would get feedback is no one ever asked me why. Cause I'm like, yeah, and I would try to explain. They're like, I don't care. This is how we do it. And you just need to get it done. And it used to piss me off when I was in that role. Cause I was like, you didn't even hear like why I did it like that. Like, I don't know why my line of thinking was wrong, because like no one wanted to hear me out. So I try to give my team the benefit of the doubt, like, hey, like explain to me why, like what's going on, like what's your thinking? And they're just like, oh, it's because of this. I'm like, got it. Okay, that makes sense. Like, thank you so much for explaining. This is our process. This is why it's important that we do it like this. Like, I appreciate that, you were trying to speed up the process by skipping this step, but we need to take the step because of this, and this. And they're just like, oh, okay, got it. And I found that 99% of the time, it wasn't laziness or not wanting to follow the process. It was just like, I think that doing it this way is better and will be more helpful to the team. And so, yeah. So yeah, it's just like different ways to approach it. And so that's interesting that we both have dealt with like COVID rules and having to enforce it, and just the approach that we take is different.
You know what's funny? Is in my projects, I use both of your guys's ways.
No, I do too. So just to like clarify, like when I do the quizzes, it identifies certain elements of like that everybody is doing incorrectly. So what I do is I reach out to the people to be like, okay, this is the criteria that pretty much like everybody failed. Let's talk about that. And I construct the trainings to explain the why behind all those things. And that's easier for me to do, to be able to disseminate like larger scale the information that everybody's clearly like not understanding the why behind. And so like I completely understand where you're coming from. And if it's like the same person that's making the same mistake, then I do have like a one-on-one training with them where I do go, okay, these are the different things that like policies and procedures that weren't followed. Help me these are the different situations that happened. This is the information that I know in regards to that. Why don't you go ahead and tell me your side of it so that I understand where you're coming from? And let's find like the common ground of understanding what the expectation is and why that wasn't met, and what we can do to like make sure that it's met in the future, and like explaining anything that needs to be explained. So one of the things that's really big is writing notes. And everybody was really adverse to writing notes because they're like, it takes too much time, things along those lines. And so I brought up different examples of, look, this is one of the reasons why we write notes. These are the reasons why it's beneficial. The notes are used not just for your capacity, but it's used in all these situations in my capacity. It's used in all these different capacities for all these different departments. And all of that is on just one action that you're doing. Yeah. And even though it may seem faster for you to skip that step, you're making hours of work for other teammates. So that's the reason why we're asking you to do it. It's not a meaningless action that you're doing. And so by like explaining the why behind it and understanding that it wasn't just this one person feeling this way, but multiple people feeling that way. And I understood that from the quiz that I had made, then I was able to implement changes and have a training that explained the why behind all of that.
That's interesting. So, I probably would have approached that differently, but that's the thing, is that we each have like different experience and different, I guess, training or backgrounds in leadership. And so I'm not saying my way is better, your way is better, or Willow's way is better. It's just different.
It's just different.
And we have different teams and we approach it differently.
And like you said, we do have different teams and different types of roles, and yeah. You do what works best for you.
Okay, guys, we are going to take a quick break. We will be back in just a moment. All right, everyone, welcome back. We just took a quick little break there. So sorry about that interruption, but we are back. I realize that we've been going on for over an hour, but I think we are all very passionate about this topic. But let's finish up with our closing question. What do you hope to see change in the future? For women, obviously.
Willow here. I think that I like where we're going in terms of inclusivity. Right. And because there's different lifestyle, there's different walks of life. And I really like where we're going with that. Yeah. And I hope to continue moving forward with that and like increase in pay and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think like the inclusivity side of where we're going has me really excited.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Hi, this is Ian. I think that for me, I would really like to see a little bit more open communication and just open minds from everybody, not just women. Just because then we can effectively address different situations of feelings on both sides. And I think that that would help us move forward effectively as a whole for humanity.
Nice. So in case you guys can't recognize my voice, it's Elfie. But so we didn't really get to touch on this today, so we'll definitely have to do another episode and touch on it on another day. But if you haven't already noticed, I'm very much into the fitness space and I really enjoy, I'm like kind of a gym rat. No, I'm not big enough to be a rat. I'm like a gym mouse. Plus mice are cuter than rats. No offense to rat lovers. But yeah, I think that there's been a lot of progress in women and sports, getting more women into sports and being a little bit more athletic and celebrating the fact that they are athletic. But I would like to see a bigger emphasis in that and continue to see progress in that field. I also want to see strength being encouraged in women. Mm-hmm. I know that there is still that stigma of women becoming too big or bulky. And even though that's not the case in like my circles, I do see it in like people, especially like some coworkers where they feel like they need to do like hours upon hours of cardio just to get like really tiny. And there's like a certain number in their head where they're like, I have to weigh this much or less. And I would just love to see that change where it's like, hey, what can your body do? Like, if you're a strong woman, like that's awesome. Like, let's celebrate that and let's encourage it. And then also, I would love to see more progress in regards to healthy competition among women, where we don't have to feel bad that we didn't get the promotion or we didn't win the competition or, we didn't get picked for whatever, this group or the sports team or whatever it could be. And saying like, yes, that sucks for me, but I am really excited for you. And like, I'm wishing you the best and let me help you be the best in any way that I can.
I love that.
Elfie, your answer made me want to change my answer.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to see advances in women's health. And that's something that we really haven't talked about.
Yes.
But I really want to see major advances in women's health and the medical industry around women's health. So
Can I
think
change my
that
answer to both of your answers?
so just spoiler guys, I think we have a few more episodes coming up and I think you know what these topics are going to be.
Yeah. And so I'm changing my answer, kind of going off of both of your guys' answers. I have PCOS and polycystic ovarian syndrome. We can talk like it's metabolic. It has to do with it also has to do with like your like a woman's reproductive system and like ovaries. And one of the issues that continues to come up is when you go to the doctor, like, but if you lose weight, if you lose weight, if you lose weight. And one of the things about like me going to the gym is getting stronger and being able to have my body do these specific things. And muscle is going to weigh more. And I don't care what weight I am. I want my body to be able to do certain things. So it's kind of combining both of your guys' answers with having the attention that I should get from my medical professionals without them telling me to go on a 900 calorie diet. Right? And being able to continue to achieve the goals that I want physically with my body in the gym and in the different things that I'm doing, trying to get healthier without doctors telling me, oh, 30 pounds is really heavy. Right.
Lifting 30 pounds is really
lifting.
heavy.
Lifting 30 pounds is really heavy. And that is actually why you're having these problems, not because of the medication that you were put on that has these side effects that are very dangerous. And when I'm bringing it up, they tell me that I'm lifting too much weight at 30 pounds. Yeah. So I'm combining both of those into my answer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I am excited for future episodes because I think we definitely have a lot of really good material here that we can talk about in the future. And I hope that you all enjoyed today's episode. I hope you join us for future episodes. But until next time, we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.